Welcome to the online class on Indian Evidence Act. In this session, we will discuss on the provisions of section 32 and 33 of the Evidence Act. Yesterday, we had covered some portion of section 32. Again, at the cost of repetition, this discussion is what section 32 and 33? What says statement by persons who cannot be called as witnesses become relevant. Always statement by a person who is a witness is relevant. Which case? If that is regarding fact in issue or relevancy of facts, then that is relevant. A person is a witness when he appears before the court either in obedience to summons or at the instance of a particular party and takes oath, gives his examination in chief and faces the cross-examination. Thereafter, his statement is taken as the evidence of a witness. You are aware of the provision that section 60 of the Evidence Act provides that all oral evidence must be direct. There is no indirect evidence is admissible. That is, indirect evidence means, indirect oral evidence means that is hearsay evidence. Suppose for an example, A is facing trial for committing murder of B. Then such of the persons who had actual knowledge about the commission of the murder, who had seen A committing murder, he is to be examined as a witness. His statement is admissible regarding fact in issue or relevant fact. But if in that case B, when he was lying, sustaining injury, at that time C came to the spot and B narrated the fact of the incident, saying that A stabbed him and thereafter B died. So this is a statement which was given by the deceased to one of the witness. He comes and deposes, if he deposes in court that he heard from the deceased that the A stabbed him. So this statement certainly is an hearsay evidence, but that is admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 32 clause 1 of the Evidence Act. Why? Because that is the best evidence, that statement, that is because of necessity. The person, the deceased knows who caused his death. So second is that if a person who is about to die, he will never implicate somebody falsely. Though evidence, a statement is admissible in evidence when it is taken on oath. Here in this case, in this dying declaration, there is no oath, but the requirement of oath, the sanctity of the statement which would have been taken on oath, that is equalized by the cause that the person who is about to die will never implicate any person falsely for his death. So that is why it is admissible in evidence. Though it is like a hearsay evidence, hearsay statement. So section 32 says, what it says? Cases in which statement of a person then who is dead, who cannot be found, or who is incapable of giving evidence, or whose attendance cannot be procured without unreasonable delay, or unreasonable expense as per the opinion of the court, then in such case, such statement is admissible in evidence, though it is hearsay. It is an exception. Section 32 is an exception. It is exception to hearsay rule. So now, in this category, the first is dying declaration. What is dying declaration? Somebody is not declaring. It is not a declaration by the person who is dead that he is by oath or by stating something clearly that this person has caused my death. But what it says? What it says? When the statement is made by a person as to the cause of his death, or as to any of the circumstances of the transaction which resulted his death, then that is relevant as dying declaration. So here, a statement to what type of statement? Either that may be either in written or in writing or in gesture or in oral form, any statement is given, then that is when that statement relates to the cause of death of the deceased or regarding any of the circumstances of the transaction resulting his death, then who can record the dying declaration? Whether it is law requires that all dying declaration must be recorded by the magistrate. No, there is no such law. What it says, section 32 doesn't provide that dying declaration, such a statement is to be recorded by magistrate. Yes, in certain cases magistrate records the dying declaration. If the statement is recorded by a magistrate, then more weightage is given to the truthfulness of such statement, and there can be conviction basing on that statement without any corroboration. If that is true, that convinces the court that such a statement is true, then it can be also made before a police. In the affair also, the person who is dead, he may mention the cause of his death. Suppose he has mentioned the cause of his death and thereafter he died. That is admissible when that person is dead. In the affair, even if a cause of death of a person is mentioned by the deceased himself was the informant, thereafter he died, that statement may be taken as dying declaration. So, any police officer any statement is given. Even bride in burning cases, suppose some letters had been sent by the deceased bride to her sister informing the fact regarding her torture, regarding demand of dowry, and thereafter she died. Then after her death, those letters will are admissible in evidence as dying declaration as per section 32(1), because those are the statements regarding the cause of her death or circumstances of the transaction which resulted her death. These are admissible in evidence. So that means what form the dying declaration or such statement is to be recorded. It is not necessary that all dying declaration there is no particular form prescribed for recording the dying declaration. It may be in a question answer form, it may be in the language of the deceased, but when it is recorded in the language of the deceased, then more important weightage is given to that dying declaration. Then before recording the dying declaration, before admitting a dying declaration, a court has a duty to see whether the deceased was in a fit state of mind or in fit condition to give such a statement. If there is evidence, no, the deceased was not in a proper medical condition, proper fit state of mind to give such a statement, that statement may be looked in suspicion. Then third is that whether even such a dying declaration may be recorded in sign or gesture given by the deceased. If the deceased in such a condition, the deceased was unable to speak, but he gave some integration informing somebody regarding the cause of his death, regarding the circumstances leading to his death. If that gesture was recorded, and that is also admissible by evidence. This law has been settled by Privy Council in the decision Queen versus Abdullah. You will find it. If it is recorded in the language of the deceased, then it is what more weightage is given. So, if the statement declares the surrounding of the circumstances of the cause of the death, all those circumstances, those statements are also admissible. Again, the suicidal notes. Suppose a person before committing suicide, he has prepared the note regarding the cause of his death, regarding the person who abetted the commission of his suicide. That is also admissible. It is not necessary shall be made to the magistrate. It is not required that all dying declaration must be made to the magistrate. It may be either to police, it may be a third party, it will be to any person. So all statements of the deceased. So in this case, what is the famous case you are aware, that is Pakalan Narayana Swami case. In that case, the deceased had informed all the circumstances regarding the circumstances in which he went to Cuttack where he was killed. Or the fact he was going to Cuttack, he was going to his friend's house to get back his money. All those facts which regarding the circumstances which resulted his death, those statements were admissible in evidence as dying declaration. If the whether corroboration is required to record a conviction on the basis of dying declaration, no hard and fast rule is there. If the dying declaration is true, it is free from doubt, even a conviction can be recorded without corroboration of the dying declaration. That is, there is no hard and fast rule like that. So what is this? This, if you will go through the decision of the Kushal Rao versus State of Bombay, in that case, the Honorable Supreme Court has laid down the principles for that accepting the dying declaration as a substantive evidence, and in what are the principles, what are the precautions are to be taken by court while relying on dying declaration that has been decided, that has been laid down by the Honorable Supreme Court in detail. So this is in nutshell regarding dying declaration. So here you are now, by now you are clear what is dying declaration. Any statement either in writing or in oral or in verbal or through gesture, which to another, what is regarding the cause of the death of the deceased, or regarding any of the circumstances of the transaction which resulted in his death, that is admissible in evidence as dying declaration. The reason is that the deceased is the best person who was aware, who had knowledge as to who caused his death, or in the circumstances how he died. Second, though it is like a hearsay evidence, but it is admissible in evidence as a person who is about to die, who is expecting his death, he will never implicate a person falsely for committing his death, for causing his death. That is the principle. So here, now, the difference between English law and Indian law is that in English law, dying declaration is admissible when it is made in immediate expectation of death, unless the deceased was imminent, there was imminent expectation or immediate expectation or of death, then such a statement is not admissible as the dying declaration. In India, the dying declaration is admissible in evidence in any of either in civil proceeding or in criminal proceeding or in any other proceeding when the cause of death of the deceased is questioned before the court. But in England, only dying declaration is admissible when in only criminal proceeding regarding the cause of death of the deceased. This is a nutshell regarding dying declaration. Then, now the second section 32 clause 2 provides that when a statement of a person who is dead, who cannot be found, or who is incapable of giving evidence, incapable means suppose now that person is suffering from such a disease that he is unable to state anything, or now he is in coma stage, now he is incapable of giving evidence, or whose attendance cannot be procured due to his living at a very distant place, or there will be unreasonable delay in obtaining his attendance. In such case, then the subsection 2 says, when the statement was made by such person in the ordinary course of business, if any of such person, you never witness is mentioned, of a person, statement of a person who is dead, who cannot be found, or who is incapable of giving evidence, or whose attendance cannot be obtained, whose cannot be procured without an amount of delay or expense, then in such case that is admissible. When it is when it consists of any entry or memorandum made by him in books kept in the ordinary course of business. What? If that statement is an entry in written form only, not oral, it is when that statement is an entry in a book kept in the ordinary course of business, or in the discharge of official professional duty, discharge of ordinary course of business, or in discharge of a professional duty. Suppose for an example, a book is maintained in the ordinary course of business in a particular office where usually when a person comes to that office, he enters on, there is an entry, or any work which is done in that office, that regarding that work, a movement of a particular file, that is mentioned in a particular book. Suppose if a doctor, there is a medical, in the medical, a register is maintained, patient register, OPD register, that entry is made in the ordinary course of business. If somebody has made an entry in that OPD register and he is dead, that statement, that entry will be the statement of that person who is dead or who cannot be found. That is admissible in evidence. What it says? When the statement was made by such person, by a person who is dead or who cannot be found or incapable of giving evidence in the course of business. That must be in the course of business, in the day-to-day course, in the course of his day-to-day business. Then, and in a particular, when it contains of an entry or a memorandum made by him, particularly when he makes any entry or memorandum means note regarding a particular fact, memorandum made by him, suppose like a case diary, etc. It is a memorandum that is in the station diary, memorandum of a report is mentioned, noted, memorandum or in the discharge of official duty, that is admissible. Second, or if acknowledged and written or signed by him the receipt of money, if a person has acknowledged the receipt of money or any goods, securities or property of any kind, and that person is dead, that statement, that is if he has given any receipt regarding receipt of, if X is dead, he had given a receipt regarding receipt of money, regarding receipt of any goods, regarding receipt of any property, then that is also admissible in evidence, though he cannot be called as a witness. Second, or of a document used in commerce, written or signed by him, or of the date of a letter or other document usually dated, written and signed by him. If they had made, suppose if somebody has written a letter from Calcutta on a particular date, then that is admissible evidence. So the subsection 2 says, if that statement of a person who is dead, who cannot be found, who is incapable of giving evidence, if he had given any statement, particularly any entry he has made in a book or a document which is kept in the ordinary course of his business in discharging his professional duties, or he has acknowledged the fact of receipt of any money. Suppose a Nazir, somebody Nazir has received some money and he had given a receipt and he is dead. That entry is admissible. So any acknowledgement of goods regarding securities or any document used in commercial commerce written and signed by him, or the date of a letter, somebody has sent a letter from Calcutta mentioning a particular date, that entry is admissible. that is written and signed by him. To prove such fact, such statement is admissible in evidence as per the provision of section 32 clause 2. Then third is, or against interest of a maker. If a person has, when the statement is against the pecuniary or proprietary interest of the person making it, when somebody has given a statement means here not in written form, even in oral form. If somebody has given a statement, which is against his proprietary or pecuniary interest of the maker. If somebody has stated that he owed some money to somebody, that statement is admissible, though he is dead. Because nobody will give a statement, nobody will give a acknowledgement receipt or etc. for that means against his interest. So that's why it is provided when the statement is against the pecuniary or proprietary interest of the person making it. If the person who is dead, who cannot be found, always these four things: he is dead, cannot be found, or incapable of giving evidence, his attendance cannot be procured without any expense, without undue expense, without undue delay. So in such case, if that person had given any statement against his pecuniary interest or his proprietary interest, and if that statement will be true, then that will expose him to criminal or civil liability. Then such statement is admissible in evidence as per third clause, that is section 32 clause 3. Then coming to the fourth clause, what it says, when the statement gives the opinion of any such person as to the existence of public right or custom or matter of public or general interest, of the existence of which, if it existed, then he would have been likely to be aware. Then, and when such statement was made before any controversy as to such right, custom or matter had arisen. Suppose somebody was the headman of a particular village. He had given a statement regarding existence of a public right or that on a particular piece of land, or a public right on a particular land of the village. That opinion he had given. Statement which gives the opinion. What is that? Opinion of such person as to the existence of public right, or he had given an opinion regarding existence of a custom or public or general interest, of the existence of which he was aware. If he had known, suppose that person was living at a far place from the village, he had given some opinion regarding existence of a public right or custom, that may not be relevant. But if he was aware of such thing, and that opinion must have been given prior to the arising of the dispute, prior to the dispute had arisen. Prior to that he had given an opinion, and he is now dead. His statement is admissible as evidence, though that is hearsay in nature, because the person who had given that evidence is not there. Somebody who is who is deposing in court, hearing the same from that person who is dead. So though it is a hearsay in nature, so that is admissible evidence in evidence as per the provisions of section 32 clause 4. What it says? when the statement gives the opinion of any such person. Any such person means what? The person who is dead, who cannot be found, whose attendance cannot be procured without unreasonable delay or heroic expense, or who is now incapable of giving evidence. When that person had given any statement regarding the existence of any custom or right, public right, or any matter of public or general interest, prior to the dispute of regarding such interest, prior to dispute regarding such custom, and if you are aware of that, if you are aware of such custom, etc., then that statement becomes relevant as per the provisions of section 32 clause 4. Now coming to the clause 5, when the statement relates to the existence of a relationship, that is relationship by blood, marriage or adoption. Always relationship of a person with another arises either by birth or by marriage or by adoption. In through a person is related to another. If by birth if somebody is the son, daughter, etc. By marriage a relationship of wife and husband comes. By marriage, birth or adoption. When there is an adoption, a relationship arises. So when the statement relates to the existence of relationship by blood, marriage or adoption between persons as to whose relationship by blood, marriage or adoption the person making the statement has special means of knowledge. Always you have to give importance that the person has special means of knowledge. So if he had given any statement regarding relationship of one person with another, either by birth or by adoption or by marriage, and he had special means of knowledge regarding that, and when that statement was made before the question in dispute had arisen, before the dispute regarding the relationship had arisen in a court of law, he had given a statement. He had given such a statement regarding the relationship of between two persons, either by blood, adoption or marriage. That is, in such case, then that statement becomes relevant, though it is hearsay in nature, as per the provisions of section 32 clause 5. Section 32 clause 6 says, when the statement relates to the existence of a relationship, that is also a relationship, but that statement is given in a will or in a document prior to the dispute, that becomes relevant. What it says? When the statements relate to the existence of relationship by blood, marriage or adoption between persons deceased. Here the between persons deceased, the person who are dead. This difference between the clause 5 and clause 6 are there. There is not person deceased. Here in clause 6, it has been any statement regarding relationship has been given by a person between the person deceased and as in made in a will or a document related to the affairs of the family. Person deceased regarding the relationship of person who are dead, if that statement had been given either in a will or a deed relating to the affairs of the family to which any deceased person belong, that the person who is dead of the family matter, he had given any statement, or in any family pedigree. What is pedigree? Family pedigree means, in Odia it is called Bansavali, pedigree. That is, X is on Y. Some persons, they maintain their family pedigree, the family history, or upon any tombstone. When a statement had been given on a tombstone between two deceased persons on a tombstone, or family portrait or other things on which such statements are usually made. On such things, such a relationship is usually mentioned. And when statement was made before the question of dispute had arisen, when the question regarding the relationship between two deceased persons had arisen, what is the difference between the clause 5 and clause 6? Clause 5 doesn't relate to the statement regarding relationship between deceased persons in a will or document. But what it says, clause 5 says, statement given by a person what regarding relationship by blood marriage or adoption between person as to whom relationship by blood marriage or adoption, the person making the statement had special means of knowledge, and when the statement was made before the question in dispute had arisen. So here, but in clause 6, but the statement relating relationship of deceased persons had been mentioned in a will, in a document, or in a this family pedigree, or open tombstone, or any family portrait, or other thing on which so usually such statement is given. That becomes relevant if it has been made before the dispute had arisen. If then in subsequent we will go through the illustration. Illustration will make you more clear. Then clause 7 says, when the statement is contained in any deed, will, or other document which relates to any such transaction as is mentioned in section 13, clause A, that is regarding existence of custom, right, etc. Section 13, what it says? Any statement given by a person regarding the existence of custom. What is section 13? Custom, any transaction by which what it says? When the question is as to the existence of right or custom, the following facts are relevant as per section 13. What it says? Any transaction by which the right or custom in question was created, claimed, modified, recognized, asserted or denied, or which was inconsistent with its existence. Similarly, particular instances in which the right or custom was claimed, recognized or exercised, or in which the existence was disputed, asserted or departed from. So this, as per this clause 732, what it says? When the statement is contained in any document, will or other document, regarding what? Regarding existence of custom, in which or any right which has been claimed, which has been asserted, which has been departed, if that has been mentioned in any document, then that becomes relevant, though that person is dead. Then clause 8 says, or is made by several persons and express feeling relevant to matter in question. When the statement was made by a number of persons and expressed feeling or impressions on their part relevant to the matter in question. This clause 8 says, suppose here there is somebody has exposed a portrait or caricature of a particular person, but the persons who were passing on the road, they saw the caricature and gave some opinion. So those the statements of those persons are hearsay in nature, those are admissible when they cannot be found. That is, they cannot be, that attendance cannot be procured due to unreasonable delay and expense. Because now the illustration will make you clear. First, on dying declaration. What it says? The question is whether A was murdered by B. So A dies of injuries received in a transaction in the course of which he was ravished. The question is whether she was ravished by B, or the question is whether A was killed by B under such circumstances that a suit would lie against B by A's wife. Statement made by A as to the cause of his or death, referring respectively to the murder, the rape. Why the statement regarding rape is admissible? Because she is dead. That is also any of the circumstances of the transaction resulting her death. So questions referring respectively to the murder, the rape, and the actionable wrong under consideration are relevant. Not only all those things. Now the question is as to date of A's birth. So here, that is 32 clause 2, you read it. We will along with that. To understand the provisions in section 32 clause 2, you have to refer the illustration in clause B. What it says? The question is as to the date of A's birth. So, the entry in the diary of a deceased surgeon regularly kept in the course of business, stating that on a given day he attended A's mother and delivered of a son is a relevant fact, because entries made in a book kept in the regular course of business or in discharging professional duty, because such an entry is made, because even if that doctor is dead, then that entry is admissible in evidence as per the provisions of section 32 clause 2. Similarly, the question is whether A was in Calcutta on a given day. A statement in the diary of the deceased solicitor, that is regularly kept in the course of business, that on a given day the solicitor attended A at a place mentioned in Calcutta for the purpose of conferring with upon specified business is a relevant fact. That is as per the provisions of the 32 clause 2, that is made in the course of business, in the ordinary course of business, that is admissible. Now the question is whether a ship sailed from Bombay Harbour on a given day. A letter written by a deceased member of a merchant firm by which she was chartered to their correspondents in London, to whom the cargo was consigned, stating that the ship sailed on a given day from Bombay Harbour is a relevant fact. That is entry. Regarding the date of selling, the question is whether rent was paid to A for a certain day. A letter from A's deceased agent to A saying that he had received the rent of A's account and held it as A's order is a relevant fact. Why? Because that receipt regarding money, receipt of money, regarding receipt of rent, that person is dead. That is admissible as per the provisions of what? This 32 clause 2. What it provides? Acknowledgement written or signed by him of the receipt of money, goods, securities, property, that becomes relevant. Now, then the question is whether A and B were legally married. Legally, there is a question arose before the court whether A and B had legally married. The statement of a deceased clergyman that he married them under such circumstances that the celebration would be a crime is relevant. Why? Because that is against the interest of the maker. So here this is irrelevant. The question is whether a person who cannot be found wrote a letter on a certain day. The fact that a letter written by him is dated on that day is relevant. The question is whether a given road is a public way. A statement by a deceased headman of the village that the road was public is a relevant fact. That is as per the provisions of what? Section 32, clause 4. Similarly, the question is what was the price of a grain on a certain day in a particular market. A statement of the price made by a deceased baniya, this is merchant, in the ordinary course of business is the relevant fact. The question is whether A, who is dead, was the father of B. A statement by A that B was his own son is a relevant fact. That is as per the provisions of this existence of relationship. 32 clause 5. He had admitted that X was his son. So here that is, now the question is whether A, who is dead, was the father of B. That is regarding relationship, existence of relationship between deceased persons. This illustration is there. What? The question is whether A, who is dead, was the father of B. A statement by A that B was his own son is a relevant fact. The question is what was the date of the birth of A. A letter from A's deceased father to a friend announcing the birth of A on a given day is a relevant fact. Now the other illustration, the question is whether and when A and B were married. An entry in a memorandum book by C, the deceased father of B, of his daughter's marriage with A on a given day is a relevant fact. Now S use B for a libel expressed in a, this is now so far as 32 clause 8. What it says? S use B for a libel expressed in a painted caricature exposed in a shop window. The question is as to the similarity of the caricature and its libelous character. The remarks of the crowd of spectators on those points may be proved. All those spectators cannot be attend court. So this is section 32. Section 33 is a very limited section. What it says? In this case, in this section, what it provides? That suppose a person was a witness in a particular case and he had deposed something in the court. Thereafter, he died. Then, though he is dead, that the statement or the deposition which he had given in previous proceeding, that is admissible in evidence in subsequent proceeding between the same parties to prove the truth of that statement for the limited purpose that whatever he had stated in the previous proceeding, previous judicial proceeding, that is true. What section 33 says? What it says? What? Relevancy of certain evidence for proving the subsequent proceeding, the truth of the facts therein stated. If somebody had given an evidence in a particular case, then and thereafter he died, then whatever evidence he had given, that can be taken, that is admissible in another judicial proceeding between the same parties only for the limited purpose of proving that whatever he had previously stated are true. What it says? Evidence given by a witness in a judicial proceeding. First requirement is that the person must have given evidence in a judicial proceeding previously. When the statement will be taken as evidence, that means he must have been cross-examined. Mere examination chief he had been done, thereafter he died, that will not be admissible. So what it says? Evidence given by witness in a judicial proceeding or in any person authorized by law to take it, either in a judicial proceeding or before any person who is authorized by law to take it, is relevant for the purpose of proving in a subsequent judicial proceeding. That evidence is relevant only for the limited or for the purpose of proving in a subsequent judicial proceeding or in a later stage of the same judicial proceeding. Later stage of the same judicial proceeding means, suppose somebody had given some evidence in a interlocutory application regarding interlocutory order regarding interim injunction, etc. He had given some evidence, thereafter he died. Then in the main suit, that evidence is admissible in evidence. What? To prove whatever he has stated is true. The truth of the fact which it states when the witness is dead. When that is admissible? When that witness is dead, cannot be found or incapable of giving evidence or is kept out of the way of the adverse party. This is not there in section 32. That witness is kept out of the way by the adverse party. That means the first witness had given any evidence in a judicial proceeding. Now, in subsequent judicial proceeding, his evidence is required to prove that whatever he had stated earlier, that is true. Suppose that witness is dead, then the previous evidence that is admissible. Suppose he cannot be found, that is admissible. But if he has been kept, he is kept out of under the control of the adverse party. Now the adverse party has controlled him, that due to persuasion of the adverse party, he is not coming, or the adverse party had bribed him, he is not coming. Or if his presence cannot be obtained without an amount of delay or expense, which under the circumstances of the court considers reasonable, that is admissible. What? Only for the limited purpose of proving the truth of the evidence which he had stated in earlier proceeding. So, provided that the proceeding was between the same party, provision is there that proceeding must be subsequent proceeding and the previous proceeding must be between the same parties or their representative interest if they are dead or between their legal heirs, etc. That the adverse party in the fact in the first proceeding had the right and opportunity to cross-examine. Adverse party must have right to cross-examine, actually cross-examine, or he had opportunity had been given, he did not avail that, he declined to cross-examine. And that the question is in issue were substantially the same in the first and in the second proceeding. The question in issue in the previous judicial proceeding and the subsequent judicial proceeding are substantially the same. Explanation provides a criminal trial or inquiry shall be deemed to a proceeding between the prosecutor and the accused within the meaning of this section. So now you are aware what is section 33. In nutshell, what section 33 speaks? What? If a person has given evidence in a particular judicial proceeding between two parties, now he is dead or he cannot be found. Now he is incapable because he is suffering from such a disease or he is in coma stage, he is unable to come to the court. And now it is required that to prove that he had given evidence in the previous judicial proceeding, that evidence is required to be proved in another judicial proceeding. So in such case, that evidence is admissible, though he is dead, he cannot be found, or he is unable to give evidence. When the issues between both the cases are same and parties are same, it is now it may come to your mind that why a person will be examined for the second time. Yes, all evidence, any person the evidence of a person will be taken into consideration. If he appears as a witness, he is examined, cross-examined, then only his evidence is taken. So in a subsequent judicial proceeding, his previous judicial evidence will not be taken. In the person whose evidence is taken in a particular case, he must come and depose. He must face the examination chief, cross-examination, then only whatever he stated in the subsequent proceeding, that will be taken into account. But here as per section 32, though when that previously he had given, if that particular witness has previously given any evidence in a judicial proceeding between the same parties in relating to same issues, and now he is dead, and in the subsequent judicial proceeding his evidence is required, and the party wants that his evidence should be taken. So in such case, that evidence will be admissible in the subsequent judicial proceeding only for the limited purpose to prove the truth of the statement which he had given earlier. For the limited purpose that whatever he had stated, that is true. In nutshell, we try to clarify you about the provisions of section 32 and 33 of the Evidence Act. If you have any doubt, you may put a question either through message or if any doubt is there, you may inform me through your message, and in the next class I will try to clarify your doubts. Thank you.